I'm not a frequent user of Netgalley, but there was a moment in time where I was requesting quite a few. I haven't requested any in a while, and I was trying to read them as soon as they came in, but I did get a little bit of a backup. And so I went to my Netgalley account and I was like, oh no, there are extra books here. And no, technically these are advanced reader's copies, so they're not the finished copy of the book. So I guess I could just, delete them, call it a wash. What's a challenge if it's not a challenge? In today's video, I'm going to be trying a chapter of all the Netgalley books that I currently have in my Netgalley account that are not yet read. And I'm going to be deciding if I'm adding them to my 2025 TBR as part of the challenge, or if I'm gonna delete them and never pick them up and never read them and never think about them again. Welcome to the Book Nook. I'm Valerie Geary. I just found a whole stack of books on my Kindle that I did not add to my original 2025 TBR Takedown spreadsheet. I did not count them in the original count at the end of December, and so now I have way more books to read than the original 290 that I said I had at the beginning of the year. This year in 2025, I am trying to read as many of my own books as I possibly can. I have a significant amount of books that I own that are on my shelves that I haven't yet read. I've accumulated them over the years. I've gathered them into my home lovingly with care, and then I forgot to read them. I'm trying to read them now. That is what I've been doing for 2025. When I posted my first video about this, where I talk about the rules and how I'm going to be trying to accomplish this, I said that I was starting with 290 books on my shelf. And I thought I had gotten all of the books counted. I went through my physical shelves, I went through my Kindle shelves, and then this month, February, I received a book in the mail for my mystery book club. It's this book, City Under One Roof by Iris Yamashita. Oh great! My mystery book club book this month is one that I already have on my Kindle. So it's like I didn't really acquire a book this month. I just get to mark it off as read because I always read my mystery book club book that comes in. So it doesn't really count on my TBR because it comes in and I read it, which is really what I should be maybe trying to do with all the books that I acquire. But you know what? We love having books just extra lying around for whenever we may need it. I get to knock this off my TBR, and then I went to my spreadsheet where I'm keeping track of my TBR and which books I read and which books I acquire and which books I unhaul. And I said, this book is not on the list. Why is this book not on the list? I know that I have the Kindle because I got it from Netgalley. And then I was like, oh no, I didn't add the Netgalley books to my list, and I think they count. For those of you who may not be familiar with Netgalley, Netgalley is an advanced reader's copy service. Basically, publishers give out free books, free ebook editions of books that are being published in the future, and readers like me, other content creators, influencers, librarians, booksellers, we are able to request access for these books on Netgalley, and in return we read them, hopefully, and leave a review or talk about them on BookTube. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books in Netgalley. One of them is City Under One Roof, which I will be reading this month for my mystery book club. So there are 6 books left, and I am going to read the first chapter of each one of those books, and then I'm going to decide if I want to add it to my TBR as part of my TBR 2025 Takedown Challenge, or if I'm gonna get rid of it. The first chapter, I cannot tell usually by the first chapter if I want to keep reading or DNF a book, especially if like I looked into it originally and requested it. Like these are books that I was interested in, and I'm still am interested in them. I'm gonna start with the oldest one, which is Off the Deep End by Lucinda Berry. I requested this back in June of 2022. So I'm gonna read the first chapter. We'll find out if it's going to stay or if it's going to go. This book starts out with a prologue. I read that, and then I read another couple pages into, I guess, kind of the first part of the book. It's not really a chapter. It is a case number. I am going to keep Off the Deep End by Lucinda Berry on my TBR. The prologue starts out very frantic, very chaotic. We have someone who is under the water, trapped in her car. She is looking for someone named Gabe. She thinks she finds them. She drags herself and Gabe out of the water, out of this sinking car. It is icy. They are freezing. She gets them onto land and she realizes it's not Gabe. And then the reader realizes Gabe is her son and Gabe is still down in the water in the car that somehow ended up there. Again, very frantic, very high paced. We are just thrown right into the middle of the water with this character. I was a little bit uncertain about the prologue. The writing was kind of jolty, kind of, like I said, frantic, just very short sentences, not all of them complete, but I think that was the vibe. It's supposed to be this kind of emotional, dramatic scene. And then we cut to a case number and we are with the woman who has lost her son, Gabe, to this accident, and she is in a psychiatric facility. She's talking to a forensic pathologist, I believe, some kind of detective. I'm not really sure yet, but he is there and he has some questions for her because the boy, the young man, I'm not sure of the ages yet, but the person that she did save during that accident has now gone missing. So they have some questions for her, and I have some questions for this book, and I am intrigued enough to keep it on my TBR. I actually was thinking about just kind of continuing to read it right now, just finishing it, seeing what happens. But I do want to read the first chapters of the other books on the Netgalley list first. I'm going to move on to the next book. That book is The Nature of Disappearing by Kimmy Cunningham Grant. Let's check out what the first chapter is all about. That was a chapter with a real good hook. I absolutely want to continue reading The Nature of Disappearing by Kimmy Cunningham Grant. The first chapter starts out with our main character doing her job. She is a wilderness guide. She is a fly fishing guide, I believe in Idaho, and she is taking this man who has paid a lot of money to participate in this trip. She is taking him out fishing and they're catching fish. He's having the time of his life and she's just doing her job. We learn a little bit about her. She isn't always happy with the clientele, but she does like being out in nature. She does seem pretty satisfied with her life. The two end up at a diner for lunch, and playing on the television above the bar is a news report, and the main character is shocked to see what she thinks may be her best friend or an old friend of hers who has gone missing. And she's not quite sure. She just kind of got a glimpse of this woman on the screen and she's like, well, maybe it's not her, but if it is, oh my goodness, my friend is missing. I literally just talked to her a couple of days ago. Her and her friend are a little bit estranged. There's clearly some tension between them, clearly some things that have happened in the main character's past, some dark secrets that may be coming up in this plot. It does seem like she's going to team up with someone from her past who she doesn't trust to try and find out what happened to their friend. But this first chapter really sunk its teeth into me, and I will definitely be leaving The Nature of Disappearing on my TBR pile, and I think I really want to read it sooner rather than later. The Nature of Disappearing does sound like a book that is just right up my alley, which of course is why I requested it on Netgalley, and I'm a little bit sad that I haven't read it sooner than now. I do love stories set in wilderness. I do love missing person stories, and I do love friendship stories and kind of twisted secrets coming up from your past and wrecking your present. So I am very intrigued to see how this novel plays out. We have up next The Daughters of Block Island by Krista Carmen. And I don't really remember why this one intrigued me, but I'm going to check out the first chapter and see if it's still something that might be interesting to me. This one has a prologue too. If it's short, I may try out the first chapter. If it's a little longer, I'll just read the prologue. Let's see how we go. I read the prologue and then I went ahead and read the first chapter, and I'm a little bit on the fence about whether or not I want to keep this one on my TBR. In theory, it has all of the ingredients that I love. We have a sister story, we have a creepy mansion, we have a very dreary island, we have what I'm hoping will be some gothic vibes. There have definitely been at least some hinting towards gothic. The writing itself does not feel gothic. The writing feels a little bit cozy mystery, and I think that's where I'm kind of on the fence because I really didn't like the prologue very well. In the prologue, we have Talia who gets a letter from a sister that she didn't know she had, and then she looks down and sees a news article, and this same woman who claims to be her sister, in this news article is reported dead on Block Island, which Talia has left a long time ago, vowing never to return. The first chapter is told from this dead sister's point of view. She's alive now. She's not a ghost. Maybe she is, I don't know. But in the first chapter, she's alive and she is arriving on the island to, I don't really know what at that point. She is sober for about 30 days. She has her little sobriety chip and she's there to, I assume, investigate her past. And she arrives at this bed and breakfast, this big mansion that looks kind of creepy and scary, and she references a gothic novel that she is reading and enjoying. And I think Talia, the first sister, also references gothic novels in relation to her mother. It does have some vibes that I might like, and I love this cover. It also was apparently a Bram Stoker Award winner for first novel in 2023. So it looks like this may be a book that's going to kind of follow a couple different narratives, a couple different timelines where we see Blake like working towards her demise, and then we see Talia working backwards to figure out what happened to Blake. There is some reference to traumatic childhood, some ghostly elements, but I just don't know if this book will pull off what I want it to pull off. I want it to be a certain vibe, a certain style, a certain way, and I am not finding that in the writing so far. The writing style itself does seem to be a little less atmospheric than I would expect from like a gothic style novel. The blurb does say it's an ingenious and subversive twist on the gothic novel, and I don't know what that means. It is intriguing to me. A spiderweb of scandal, secrets, and murder. I just want the writing to be different for this one. And I don't know that I can enjoy this book with the style that I am seeing in the first like 5%. I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and delete this one off of my TBR. This one is not going to be staying there. I'm going to go ahead and let go of this book. If it comes back to me in the future, maybe I will revisit it. Or if you have read this book and you want to change my mind, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and let it go. Say goodbye and let it go. I have 3 more first chapters to read. I think I'm going to go ahead and dive into Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth. So for Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth, again, we have a prologue and a first chapter. I read both. They were both pretty short. And I think I am going to take this one off my TBR. I do not think it's going to be content that I really want to read right now. This book does get a lot of good ratings on Goodreads, and it was a Goodreads Choice nominee for Favorite Mystery in 2024. I think I have read one of her other books, which is probably why I picked this one up. I read The Soulmate, and I enjoyed that one quite a bit, but for this one, I don't think it's going to be one that I connect with as much as The Soulmate was. The prologue starts with someone at a therapist's office. Therapists are apparently a key trope in the Netgalley requests this time around. And they are mentioning something about wild meadows and something about growing up there and something dangerous and secret. And then we cut to chapter 1, and chapter 1 features a main character, Jessica, who is a home organizer, and she's on her way somewhere and a detective calls her. Also mentions the wild meadows. I think this is going to be a story about secrets, family tragedies, foster kids, and I am not sure that I want to go down that road right now. I just don't think this is going to be the story for me right now. I don't really think I want to read about kids in danger at this point, so I'm going to take this one off my TBR. I would love to hear if you have read this one and what your thoughts were on Darling Girls, but for me, I'm going to let it go and move on to something else. The next first chapter I'm going to read is Every Time I Go on Vacation, Someone Dies by Catherine Mack. This one looks like a lighthearted, cozier mystery, so we'll see if I get along better with that one. The first chapter of Every Time I Go on Vacation, Someone Dies by Catherine Mack was pretty fun, but I do not think that I want to read it on Kindle. There are some very big formatting issues with the Kindle document that Netgalley gave out. In particular, this book has some footnotes and some metafictional type of stuff that's happening that I think would be better in a physical book. Catherine Mack is a pseudonym for Catherine Mackenzie, who also writes mystery thrillers, more serious ones, and I read one of her books and really enjoyed it, and I have a couple more on my Kindle that I am wanting to read. Every Time I Go on Vacation, Someone Dies is more of a lighthearted type of mystery, kind of one of those cozy, cartoony ones. The vibe is kind of giving me Finley Donovan, and so I do want to keep this one on my TBR. I just want to get a physical copy of it. The first chapter, we start out with our main character, Eleanor, who is a writer. She wrote a very popular true crime book involving her and this man, Connor, and this man, Connor, is now kind of her partner. Reluctantly, she does not want him around, and she is trying to get rid of him. And I think the first chapter opens with like, I want to, commit homicide, I want to kill Connor, or something like that. And then the chapter ends with him coming to her and saying, hey, someone's trying to kill me. And she's like, it's me. But is it her or is it someone else? There is a playfulness to the tone. There's a silliness. There is a little bit of shenanigans happening. They are currently, I think, in Rome during this book. There's going to be some travel elements. It just sounds like one of those really fun, lighthearted mysteries to have on tap in case I'm having like a hard week, or I just want something like a little palate cleanser or something to make me laugh. So I'm going to try and find a physical copy of this book, because I'm definitely not going to read it on my Kindle, but I do want to read it, and it will be staying on my TBR. The last book that I am going to try today, the last first chapter, is Red River Road by Anna Downs, and I'm really hoping that this one is one that I will want to continue reading, because I am looking for a book to fulfill the Buzz Wordathon Challenge February prompt, which is water words, and River works for that. Let's dive into the first chapter or see if this is going to be a book that's going to hook me. I don't think Red River Road is going to be the book for me. Things that are working in this first chapter, this is set in Australia. I love books set in Australia. Things that aren't working for me, all the rest of it. So this book had a little bit of a prologue. There was a social media post about a young woman who was going on her first van life trip, hashtag van life, hashtag solo female traveler. I was a little bit turned off by that, but kind of willing to see where this journey was going to take me. I am not super interested in van life, but it could be like an interesting type of mystery thriller. Then we move into a new narrator who references the woman who posted at the beginning in the prologue. And it seems like this woman who posted about her trip, Phoebe, is now missing. And then the main narrator in the first chapter is driving her own van down this dark road. She's kind of running from something. She was at a campsite and then got feeling a little nervous, and so she left, and now she's on this dark road and there's a van that's chasing her, and also she's drunk, which I'm not a big fan of. Don't drink and drive. It does seem to be a bit of a trope to have a character who drinks a lot and maybe can't remember things or has some time slips, that kind of thing. So she is driving down this dark road. She gets kind of knocked off the road by a different car. She pulls over, she falls asleep. As she wakes up, sees something in the woods, kind of tries to chase after it. Then she gets back in the van, she looks in the rearview mirror, and someone is in the van with her. That's pretty scary. Unfortunately, it was not enough to hook me. I do not want to keep reading this book for this very particular reason that I'm going to share with you right now. For some reason, with thrillers, I enjoy them, but I would not say that it's like my favorite genre. I do prefer traditional mystery. I do prefer detective stories, but thrillers can be fun. They can be interesting, especially if they're trying to do something new or subversive or add some new twists. But one thing that I really don't like in my thrillers is first-person present tense narration. I don't know why I'm so picky about that, but the first chapter was in first-person present tense narration, and it just has this kind of rhythm and this kind of tone that I really find grating. There is a bit of a young adult feel to that first chapter, and I do notice that in the second chapter we go into a third-person present tense narration, which I would like better, but I still don't think that I'm interested in continuing with this book based on the first chapter. I love this cover though. Look at this cover. Stunning. Love it. Set in Australia. I wish that this chapter hooked me more than it did. So it does kick off on kind of an exciting start, and it does sound like it could be a really interesting journey, but I don't think the writing style is going to be for me. I'm going to let it go and say goodbye, and I'm going to have to find another book with water words to fit for my Buzz Wordathon prompt. I am deleting 3 out of the 7 books that I requested on Netgalley, so that leaves me with 4 titles that will be added to my TBR. One of them, City Under One Roof, is going to be read this month in February, and I'll talk more about that in my February wrap-up. And then the other 3 I will get around to whenever I get around to them. And hopefully I enjoy the rest of those books as much as I enjoyed their first chapters. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Do any of these books sound good based on their first chapter, based on their cover? Of the 3 that I am getting rid of on my TBR, do you think I should keep any of them? Do you think I should give any of them a second chance? I'll be back soon with another video letting you know where I stand on my TBR Takedown challenge, how many books I've finished, how many books I've added, and where I am at compared to where I started in January with 290 books. Stay tuned for all of that and more in upcoming videos. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I had a great time checking out these books, and I hope that you had some fun too. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.